Okay, so today I want to talk about regulation. And regulation is basically everything, both for us and also our dogs as well. So if you've got a dog that is impulsive, is reactive, feels impossible to train at times, or just is constantly making bad decisions, then a big contributor to that is regulation. Today, I want to walk you through 3 foundational pillars of a regulated dog. This is what I call the Holy Trinity. But before I continue, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Junior, founder of Paws of Wisdom, and I help dysregulated and over-the-top dogs and their overwhelmed owners reset and rebuild their foundations and get back on the same page. So let's start with the basics of what regulation is. A regulated dog can think clearly, make right decisions, is less impulsive, and can take direction where needed to. The internal state of that regulated dog is one where everything is harmonious, everything runs smoothly, everything is operating efficiently. A dysregulated dog, on the other hand, their internal state is more chaotic, it's out of sync. And due to this, it means that they're less able to take directions, they're more impulsive, they can be more reactive, they're just generally chaos inside, so it's chaos outside. So that's the best way to really think about it. Regulation is harmony on the inside, harmony to an extent on the outside, and dysregulation is chaos on the inside and more than likely chaos on the outside. This is why training a dysregulated dog takes so much longer. And this is why I always suggest that the best way to train is regulation before expectation. We focus on creating that regulated dog first, so then we can go on to train the behaviors that we really need to. So what are these 3 pillars? The sleep and decompression, they are purposeful outlet, and mental stimulation and challenges. So let's start with sleep and decompression. Sleep is one of the most underrated training tools in dog training. A lot of dogs aren't getting the right amount of sleep. Dogs should be getting 16 to 18 hours of sleep every single day. And even though it sounds like such a big number, it's actually not as hard as you think once you get everything down. But it's not just the amount of sleep, because some dogs can sleep 16 to 18 hours a day easily, but it's also the quality of sleep they get. You want to make sure that your dog is getting a deep, restorative sleep that kickstarts regulation, that resets that stress internally. Because when dogs don't get that high quality sleep, you end up experiencing issues like trigger stacking, where stress builds up over the day, and because the body's not getting proper sleep, it builds and it builds and it builds. And that can continue on for days, weeks, months. This is why sleep and decompression is such a big factor, because without it, everything else crumbles. So when it comes to sleep, we need to make sure that we're giving our dogs structured downtime. And if they really do struggle with it, we need to enforce it until it becomes a habit. But on the other hand, we cannot expect them to sleep if we aren't providing daily decompression to help aid this as well and meeting their needs on top. The second pillar is purposeful outputs. Walks are not enough for a lot of dogs to provide them the fulfillment and the satisfaction and the release that they need for pent-up energy. This is why you could walk a dog for hours on end, get back, and that dog is still in a frustrated and energetic mood, because you haven't really gone to release the energy. What you've really done is just add some cardio to their system. When I talk about purposeful outlets, I'm talking about breed specific. Dogs are bred to do different jobs, and doing those jobs can provide them with a release, and it also makes them feel good on the inside. There are a lot of dogs that struggle with unwanted behaviours, but those unwanted behaviours are really just unmet needs and outlets that they haven't achieved yet. Outlets focus on the predatory motor pattern, otherwise known as the prey drive, and by giving dogs activities that suit their expertise in this prey drive in a controlled manner, you can reduce unwanted behaviours, you can get rid of that pent-up energy, you can transform your dog more than you would with more walks. And finally is mental stimulation and challenges. Mental stimulation, enrichment, challenges, all of these are great for the brain side of everything. You can do all the exercise in the world, but without focusing on the mind as well, you'll end up with a dog that's chaotic up here. And as I've mentioned, chaotic on the inside, chaotic on the outside. You want to provide mental challenges and stimulation that work that brain to expel mental energy. So you have to focus on these three pillars as one system, as I mentioned, the Holy Trinity. So if you push too hard in one direction, you can offset the whole balance of everything. And as I mentioned, regulation is that internal balance. So you don't want to prioritize sleep and then not give your dog enough outlets and stimulation through the day. And on the same hand, you don't want to push too much on the outlet side and not give your dog enough sleep every day. Because by doing this, you can create more dysregulation, more chaos, more reactivity. That is why my mantra is regulation before expectation. We have to fix these foundations. We have to figure out the perfect balance of the Holy Trinity before we go into any form of training. Because if not, training is 10 times harder to do, and you're always going to be fighting a losing battle when it comes to training a dysregulated dog. Obviously, these aren't the only factors when it comes to behavior. However, these are the three that I prioritize over everything else because these three will umbrella over everything else. So if you do find that your dog has been stuck in a state of chaos, is making the wrong choices, is harder to train and live with, then it could just be the simple reason that they've become dysregulated, that something has become unbalanced. And the key then is to rebuild that regulation, is to prioritize that Holy Trinity. And I'll talk about this in another video, but we have to lower the unholy Trinity. So that's the stress, the frustration, the arousal that our dogs are under. We need to balance it in a way where the unholy Trinity is non-existent and boost the Holy Trinity as much as possible. Only then will our dogs become regulated, and only then can we start to make progress. If you want to find out more on the Holy Trinity, the unholy Trinity, stress regulation, all of that jazz, sleep, finding proper purposeful outlets, then check out the Paws of Wisdom resource vault. It's free and it's packed with resources that will help you understand all of this stuff even more.